Taoiseach, hard-pressed families are waiting and worrying about the water bills that you and the Labour Party are preparing for them. And you recall that you rammed through the Water Services Bill, that you used the guillotine, that you suppressed debate, and you even caused a walkout, quite unprecedented, of opposition TDs. And despite your stated commitment and promise of political reform, you persistently failed to provide important information to the Dáil. Instead, you govern by press release. You make important announcements outside of here. You don't govern by democratic debate in the Oireachtas. You've created a fog of confusion. You brief on conflicting figures. This causes more and more anxiety to households. And last week you refused to answer straight questions, and the Taoiseach, when asked by gCeannairí MacDonald, also refused to answer straight questions. So why, Taoiseach, do you and your ministers persist in refusing to make yourselves accountable to the Oireachtas, but you're clearly very able to leak information to the media? So would you take the opportunity now to clear up one matter for everyone? I presume you're not going to give us the detail of your water tax proposals, but if, as you claim, the government does not envisage the privatisation of the water services, will you support the 34th Amendment of the Constitutional Bill 2014, which Sinn Féin has put forward and which seeks to ensure the right of all persons to sufficient, safe and accessible water, and that water services and infrastructure remain in public ownership? If that is your position, will you support the Sinn Féin bill?
Thank you.
No, I won't support the Sinn Féin bill.
There's a question answered.
Well, first of all,
please.
First of all, the Taoiseach answered. I
didn't hear. What was the comment? Taoiseach, thank you.
First of all, the Taoiseach gave Deputy MacDonald, whom I don't see in the House today, a very direct answer to her question. And obviously, whatever planned diversionary tactics you had in your meeting last week were employed here. The government will not support the bill produced by Deputy Stanley, because the first part of the bill would create a constitutional right to water without taking any account of costs or implications for private property rights, and without any specific requirement for people to pay for that water, and it's not properly considered and it's not thought through. And the second part of the bill would create a constitutional requirement that water services and infrastructure would remain in public ownership. The existing legislation already provides a statutory prohibition on the disposal of Irish water and its water services infrastructure, and in any case, Deputy McGrath, it's not deemed to be appropriate to amend the Constitution to provide for a prohibition in the privatisation of a utility company. And furthermore, some uncertainty could arise for privately owned group water schemes which receive considerable state funding as to whether their status is actually changed or not. So the situation is that the shares that are allocated here for the Water Services Act of 2013 provides for the establishment of Irish Water as a subsidiary of Bord Gáis Éireann, and that it should conform to the conditions that are set out in the Act and registered under the Companies Act. And Section 4 of that Act provides that Irish Water is registered as a private company limited by shares under the Companies Act, and Section 5 provides that 1 share of Irish Water shall be issued to Bord Gáis Éireann, which is now Arvia, with the remaining shares allocated equally between the Minister for the Environment, Community and Local Government and the Minister for Finance. And as Arvia is a fully state-owned company, Irish Water is accordingly in full state ownership. And Section 5(6) of the Act, as amended by Section 46, prohibits each of the 3 shareholders from disposing of their shareholding in Irish Water, and thus places a statutory prohibition on the privatisation of Irish Water. It will never be privatised, and there is no party in here would ever put that down as part of their programme. These are the reasons why we will not support the bill this evening.
Deputy Adams.
Well, nobody, Taoiseach, knows more about diversionary tactics than your government, and particularly on this issue. And if we want an explanation for all your twists and turning and contradictory statements, it's because you have underestimated the determination of ordinary citizens, of people who never were on a protest in their lives, to come out against your government's plan to charge them for water. And you've been forced to back down. Your ministers have come along here and criticised the previous ministers. And I think after 6 years of the austerity policies that you have been pursuing, that you just didn't envisage the level of resistance that we have all witnessed. Hundreds of thousands of people have taken to the streets, and others who wouldn't be able to come support the very, very basic position that they shouldn't have to pay again for water. And they don't want you just to reduce it or to bring in sweeteners or to deal with the type of leaking and briefing you've been given to the media. They want you to scrap water charges. That's it, Taoiseach. That's it, Taoiseach. Scrap the water charges. Now, if I can say so, you say you're not going to support the motion which we're putting, which embeds the right to water in the Constitution. Yet Labour supported this in the Seanad. So what are the Labour TDs going to do when it comes to a vote here on this issue? What's the government going to do on this issue? And can you, Taoiseach, can you not review what you have just said and support the people's right to water, scrap the water charges and embed this right in the Constitution?
Taoiseach.
Well, first of all, you asked a question, would I support the legislation put forward by your party? And the answer to that question is no, and I've given you the reasons why. Then you made a comment about the situation in general, and I might say that just a few weeks ago you yourself were advocating the payment of water charges, and that you would advise your party to pay the water charges and make their contributions for investment for the future. You then changed your mind when you heard the sound of marching feet. And by the way, of course, you are a man very much who needs to see that your party keeps its word here. And just yesterday evening, members of the gCeannairí spoke to public representatives of your party down in Sligo and were given a specific assurance that public roadways would not be blocked and that there would be a peaceful protest, which is perfectly legitimate. That wasn't the case when the opportunity arose. So if you gave them instructions, they didn't carry out your instructions. So the answer to your question is no. I would say to you as well, Deputy Adams, that we're very conscious of this because it is a matter that has been raised by many people around the country. And there are implications in respect of the proposition contained in the bill. And in order to strengthen what is already referred to in the Constitution and the reasons that I've outlined for you, the Minister for the Environment will bring forward primary legislation to strengthen and bolster the position here insofar as the Constitution is concerned, so that Irish water will be retained in public ownership and will never be privatised.
Thank you. Deputy Wallace.